The glass wall. The entire glass facade process was relatively simple and logical. Then a nice cleaned out plank 150mm or 6 inches wide was placed in a way to support the glass. It's screwed into the center thick rectangular column. The width of the edge of this column adjacent to the glass was 100mm or 4 inches. Thus 25mm or 1 inch over was plenty to support the glass from falling forwards. We first installed 180 by 50mm or 7 by 2 inch upright board. This could have been 150 by 50mm or 6 by 2 inches. As this wall is not load bearing, the main upright rectangular column take most of the weight. These planks are there to hold the glass in place. Even smaller size could have been used. The glass width dictated the placement of this board.
Все?
Все хорошо. И вот здесь вот так вот.
В ту сторону. И в ту сторону. Уперся. Ага.
Еще туда надо. Да?
The board was placed in a way that the end of this glass almost reached the middle of the 50mm or 2 inch edge. This is done so the other glass would also be supported by the same plank. The gap between the two glasses was roughly 8mm in order to shower a strip of foam so the glass does not touch the other glass. Remember that we are doing frameless framing. I will show you the placement of the other glass and foam bit just now. I have to mention here that all of these front timber pieces for glass facades should be treated with an outdoor varnish or something that you've researched, as they are prone to sun and wetness. Earthships do a whole tin finish, which I think is a really good idea. I have never worked with tin besides what I've showed you in the previous lesson, so I cannot comment. Earthships use special bending equipment which make it pleasant to work with tin. I've showed you in the previous lesson how we bend tin, inscribing it with something sharp and then using a clean edge of a plank to bend it on the opposite side of inscribed scratched line. Back to the glass. We had to quickly put a piece from the other side. Again, don't get attached to the sizes, but rather see what was done, as you could improvise a hell of a lot just with what you have. The 100 by 50mm or 2 by 6s got hammered in gently with a rubber mallet, and then it got connected with screws into the windowsill from the bottom and at an angle from the top. I'm not going to explain too much here, as visually you can see what is happening. We mounted the glass facade one piece at a time. The entire process was super creative and fun. The glass design I did by checking what I bought from a second-hand dealer. They were all different sizes. I bought two nice same size pieces that I thought were going to be the center upright ones. However, we ended up putting one upright and the other one sideways. When going to buy the glass, you should have a rough to-scale drawing of your opening so you know roughly the glass that you are hunting for. Remember that it can be placed vertically, horizontally, or even diagonally. We placed the 2x6s and made marks straight there and then pre-cut it right there and then on site with a chainsaw or normal wooden saw. I even shaved away a piece to create curvature with my jigsaw. We used wooden chisels where needed. A sharp wooden chisel works really well. Before using a piece of timber, you need to check that it is cut perpendicular, as is seldom perfect from the sawmill.
Так вот.
Оно легче идется по волокнам. Ничего, я лобзиком, Коль. Чуть-чуть.
These foam insulations were 5 centimeters thick, or 2 inches, and they did all the magic. Without those, we would have to make the frames for all the glasses, and this would have tremendously added to timing and to the cost factor.
Вот сверли эти дырочки.
Из центрального начать, да? Ну ты, конечно, плотник на все руки. Очень даже приятно получилось.
Just a reminder that the bottom cutout trench was about 45 millimeters wide, a snug fit for this foam that's used to insulate the pipes. The glass was 5 millimeters thinner than the overall trench. Also note that not all the windows have to open. It is nice to have, but you don't need it. Summer is full of mosquitoes, and good cross-air ventilation will provide all the necessary draft and fresh air you need. Plus, there is a large door that opens and one small corner window. We'll cover the ventilation part later in the training in the lesson on passive heating and cooling. At some point, whilst loading the earthen roof, we noticed a little bit of buckling on our vault from one side. We then decided right there in the evening to place another upright rectangular column. We pre-cut the front wall logs about 2 inches in so that we're able to receive this column. Be careful using the edge of the chainsaw whilst doing this task. Although it is nice to work with the edge part of the chainsaw, it does have a tendency to shoot up if you do not hold it properly. Thankfully, all chainsaws have a safety mechanism that automatically locks the blade.
Нормально, я вижу. Стакан.
When your hand pushes this black plastic safety mechanism.
Да? Вот так и вот так. То есть у нас на сантиметр больше.
Да. Ну, сантиметр.
We use a strong car jack, another must-have tool during this build. It gave us a slight lift of about 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. We measured accordingly from the footing of the bottom front log, which we also cut out, to the bottom of the arch after it was lifted with a jack. Thus said, the jack allowed us to cut a column longer than it would have fitted in at the stage. It needed a slight lift so it would sit super snug once the jack was removed. There also was one glass that just could not make it in, but I really wanted it there because it was bigger. When I asked Carl if we could cut a little piece out of one of the 3 planks that made up the front arch, he looked at me like I'm mad, saying something in the lines that you should not cut a branch you stand on, or this is a structural element that we should not mess with as it is already loaded with earth. But then, after explaining to him thoroughly that the cutout needs to be tiny and we will reinforce the rest with 3 pieces of plywood and then pre-cut it once plywood is in place, his engineering mind agreed. We did this piece and the larger glass fitted in really well.
Так, сейчас мне все копать. Это самое. Офигеть. Все коленько.
After all the glass was there, I decided to finish up the small triangle with polycarbonate, and I'm glad I did so. And the evening time showed me why. Should I have made these pieces out of plywood, the view from the inside would have had steps on a clear rounded arch shape. The polycarbonate made a continuous curve of clear glass and semi-clear polycarbonate. For super cold winters, Collier recommended to do a polycarbonate on the front and another one on the back of a 2x6s. Alternatively, a triple layer polycarbonate would work really well. I only used a tiny bit. One could find these small pieces at a construction scrapyard or by asking around. There is no need to buy a whole sheet if you'll use only 1/20th of it. We used little rakes which were made by splitting polished up 1x4s. Or 25 by 100 millimeter. The rakes made sure that the polycarbonate and glass pieces all were finished up and fitted to the structure. Very important to note that the foam will allow for airtight fit so that the water and wind will not get in between your wood. Collier did a really good job. The trick was foam. There is a setting that allows you to spit it out nice and slow. You just turn the little valve so you cannot go faster than this little slow Joe. This is the only way to do it in this circumstance. When I did foam myself, I was very messy and I squirted a whole canister in less than a minute.
Это была моя идея, Коля.
The door frame. As you remember, we installed a 4x8 rectangular pillar for one side of the door. The other piece was a 6x2 on the left of the column. Ola did a cutout from the bottom of the foundation log to receive a flat plank, which we mounted with foam. Obviously, everything was measured so that the left upright of the door was parallel to the door column. We managed to cut the plank a little too short, and then a wedge came in handy. Once the door step was made, we were able to dig the earth on the front. We decided to do it in a tapered shape as seen in the video. I placed 2 pegs on an approximate distance away that would have allowed a gentle downwards angle in order for the rainwater not to run back into the home. The earth turfs went straight into the roof. Topsoil there was left in a pile for the planting later on. Making of the door. I got 1 piece of plywood for the door and measured it on side before cutting. My cut was so bad as I did not use my own jigsaw with a metal blade. Metal blade for plywood is crucial due to the fine teeth that allow for a smooth cut.
Was a jigsaw that I'm not used to. This is my jigsaw with a fine metal blade for the plywood. This thing you can cut with a rough blade, but even that, because it's not my jigsaw, I'm not used to it. Here I'm much more accurate because this is a tool I use.
The way to measure this plywood is to take a piece of wood or cardboard and trace the arch between the 2 upright door columns. I then got 3 heights for the door, from the bottom doorstep to the top of the arch. The 2 were on the sides of the door and the 3rd one was in the middle. Using these heights, I then placed my wooden stencil, which I cut from 50 by 100 mm or 2x4, and placed it on the plywood. This stencil piece later on also formed a part of the frame inside the door. Once I cut the plywood, I brought it back to site to check it in place. I did a proper trim up and clean up of my bad cut. The rest of the door was sculpted on this plywood. In Russia, we get door making kits that include a little felt, some fake leather, and some of these nails with golden caps. So these previous holes, they've got a little sharp edge on this back part. I lift it up, I grab it, and I pull it down. I'm figuring this out. It just goes better.
And obviously get the angle right, because I can't. I'm rushing also. Because I gotta move in. So you. Oh, that's a problem. You gotta go one by one. That was a glove. I pull down. Lift up, pull down with a hammer. See that little wobble? I just where the screw was, I couldn't hammer it down. Put it in. Hold. Screws could be a little longer. So almost can't, because when you hammer them in to make a hole, but you gotta use what you have. Yeah. Lift up a little there and pull down. Obviously I started off terrible there, and I'm getting to better.
We used insulation inside. I placed a foam board and hit it hard so the skeletal inner frame would make a mark. I cut along that mark. I will not comment much on how I made the door, as it was my first time. I even inserted the glass diagonally. It was a creative woodworking process by an unprofessional, and thus I know you'll be able to repeat it. I used a planer at the end to match the plywood and inner door frame skeletal structure. A piece of tin strip really finished it well, as the insulation foam was seen when looking into the glass. I cut the strip again 3 mm wider than needed to bash the edge
So it doesn't stick out. Cut a little piece off so it blends in.
onto a rounded curve to avoid any sharp edges.
And you can make it a bit longer, maybe 5 millimeters, 3 millimeters longer, and then it's easier to bend around, and then it can have a nice round edge. I'm discovering this as I go, so some parts are made too short to do this kind of effect, like here, and some parts are made just right, just like here. Just play around. Like here I've got a step because I've got a thinner wood and a thicker wood from offcut, so I'll need to cut here. Let's try that, because obviously I can't bend it because it's two different heights, like that. Yeah, play around.
Collier helped me to install the door, and as usual there were some tweaks we had to make with the hinges.
Reinforcement.
It was rather heavy, so strong hinges were necessary. Always remember to put 2 little wedges of 2 to 3 millimeters under the door when mounting it. Once you remove these 2 pieces, the door will open and close nicely.
Здравствуй, дорогой. Здравствуй, дорогой. Теперь вот здесь надо будет, Леш, сделать что-то. Ну здесь будет этот. У тебя там бурочек, чтобы дверь до конца не открывалась, а то она будет
Стукаться.
петли срывать будет.
А,
Поэтому вот здесь вот должна быть опора, чтобы она так и стала. Все.
хорошо, сделаем.
Вот она и есть. Отлично. Отлично.
It was our luck, but the door closed by itself. This luck can be calculated in the future by tilting the hinges ever so slightly. The door will also need some rakes to close up the edges snug. You could also get foam pieces that are designed for the doors. Please research these finer details on how to finish up the door so that it is airtight and cold wind does not enter. In my own home, I will create an additional door with a cold room that I could take my shoes off. This will allow the super cold air not to waft in straight into the house.
We made it together. The three of us in 6 weeks and 4.5 hours per day. 7 days a week. Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it's finally snowing, I hope.